Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today is going to be story time. And this story time sort of ties into yesterday's conversation about the clinic restructuring, okay? Now, if you have not watched yesterday's episode, I talked about clinic reassignments, okay? Now, clinic reassignments sometimes happen wherever you are, whether you work in a hospital or a doctor's office. Sometimes coders are pulled to work in different clinics, and for whatever reason, there's many reasons why, but I have to rewind the story in order to get you guys to the current day. So I about a year before last, okay, I was pulled out of the orthopedic clinic. Okay, now that upset me because I love orthopedics, and it was very hard for me because I had worked with these providers for years. But my boss was like, well, I need you to work in neurology, rheumatology, and pulmonology. And so I said, fine, whatever, I'll do whatever. And I didn't get any training or anything like that, which I didn't expect it, because I'm very hands-on with my providers. And I didn't expect the coders that were being pulled out of those clinics to give me any sort of direction, and they didn't. So, which is fine, whatever. But when I had left the orthopedic clinic, of course, I had informed all of my providers that I was leaving, and that somebody else, my partner, was going to be taking over. And it's customary to send an email like that and at least let them know. And I had told all of them, this isn't goodbye. This is just see you around, because I'm still going to be here. I said I will still be embedded in the clinic. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I said this is going to be a transition time, so everybody is going to have to, there's going to be a new way of doing things. So I said, but I'm always available, and don't feel like you can't ask me questions. So I had gotten a lot of responses, we'll miss you, and things like that, and you're a very good coder, and I've learned a lot from you, and that was really, really nice to hear. So I had started really diving deep into neurology, rheumatology, and pulmonology. And the provider that I had taken over for neurology, I had never worked with her before. And I'm going to call her Provider G, okay? Provider G. And I had never worked with Provider G before. And when I got her documentation, and I'm only going to talk about neurology because that ties into the end of the story, okay? So Provider G and I had not really met each other, okay? So I had gone up and I had talked to her, and I introduced myself, and I said, well, I'm going to be reviewing your documentation. If there's any issues, I'll let you know. And so she was like, well, that's fine. She wasn't anticipating any issues, because she says, I've never gotten any feedback. I've never gotten, any sort of thing that I was doing anything wrong, so I don't anticipate you getting back with me on anything. So I said, okay. So I was looking through her documentation, and this is the neurology clinic. So obviously these are very complex patients, because this is a specialty clinic. And I'm looking at her documentation, and I'm noticing that she's not meeting levels. She's not, there was things that were missing from her documentation, and I could just tell because after a while, when you start coding, you'll know little things that are missing, because you can spot it. And of course, this is when you have to talk with your provider and things like that. Well, I started looking at this stuff, and she had been doing groups and things like that. Again, there was information that was missing. And so I said, okay, well, let me go and talk to her about this. So I had talked to her, and this was during the first week of this transition. And I said, well, ma'am, I'm noticing that, you're not meeting the levels because you're not meeting enough points in your evaluation and management. And we're going over these detailed things. And she's getting upset, clearly, because, it's understandable. She had never heard. And she had been there for years, and she had never heard anything about her levels being off because of not meeting points. And so I said, okay, well, we'll work together to get this taken care of. And she got an attitude, So she was like, well, I've never heard of this before, and I don't understand why this is a big deal now. And I said, it's not anything that's new. This should have been brought to your attention several times. And she was like, well, it never has been, and I don't know why you're doing it. I said, because I care. I want to make sure that you're getting all the credit that you're eligible to get. And she goes, you can't expect me to do this stuff overnight. And I remember having this conversation with her because she was very spirited. and I said, no, I don't expect you to do this overnight. I don't expect you to change. I don't expect you to learn all of this overnight. I said, but what I would like is for us to work together, because that is the whole goal. The whole goal is to make sure that you are equally and fairly compensated for everything that you're doing. And so she was very reluctant, and she said that she goes, I was never told this. And I said, I understand. And at this point, I had to include my boss on this email. And I normally don't do that because I think that you can settle these things on the lowest level. But I did have to bring her in it because, she was clearly getting upset. Provider G was clearly getting upset. And I said, okay, well, I just copied my boss on it. And she said, well, no one's ever said this to me. No one's ever made this a point. And I said, she goes, I've been here for years. And I wrote her back, and I had my boss on there, and I said, I cannot answer for your previous experience. I said, all I can do is bring to you my knowledge and try to help you the best way that I can. And so after that sort of equalized everything, and she calmed down after that, and she's like, well, can I get a couple of days to fix these errors and things like that? I said, yeah, sure, that's fine. So we started working a little bit more, little by little. And, little by little, it took 4 months of whenever I would bring her a query, there was a fight. There was a argument, there was I'm not going to do this. I'm not doing this. And I was just patient with her. I mean, you just have to be patient, and you have to just care for them through it. I mean, because they're going to put up a fight. And I knew that was the problem. And I felt frustrated because I knew the coder that had left me with this situation. And I knew that, for her, that she had all these years of experience as well, she knew better, and I knew it. And I felt upset because, she didn't train her, she didn't take care of her like she should have. And it bothered me because, she had gone all these years and thinking everything was okay. And so for about 5 months into being with her, and working with her and trying to help her with documentation and doing one-on-ones with her and giving her classes and things like that. I mean, these were a lot of one-on-one classes. And even my boss was like, Blue, and I go, you can't expect me to not help her with this. I said, this has to get straight, because I said, this cannot go on like this. And so she's like, well, you're right, So about month 5, she started really, catching on. Everything was getting better, and she was working with templates, and she was getting more detailed with her documentation, and things were just easier, and it was transitioning, and it was getting better. So about a year in, it was the end of the year, and it was the end of the first year of me and her being together as a team. And she had stopped me in the hallway, and she said, oh, I wanted to let you know that, because I saw her, and I said, oh, hey, how are you doing? And she's, oh, I'm doing good. She had this big smile on her face, and she's like, I just wanted to tell you thank you. And I said, oh, okay, well. And then she goes, well, it's this year in review, and they ran my numbers from last year versus this year, so they can see if I've done progress, or if I've gotten better, or anything like that. She said, and I've actually tripled what I've done production-wise, and RVUs and things like that. And I was like, wow. I said, really? She said, yeah. She goes, I knew I had gotten an influx more. She goes, but it was the quality of my notes that they noticed were going up. And I said, oh, and I said, well, that's wonderful, and I gave her a hug, and she said, well, I just wanted to thank you so much. She goes, because I never knew this stuff before. She goes, before you came along, I never knew this. And she goes, now, she goes, it's just so easy. It's so easy for me now. And she goes, my numbers look better, and everything is just much more better, And I said, well, I'm so happy for you. I said, that is really awesome. She goes, I want to say thank you. She goes, because they were saying, how wonderful I was doing. She said, but I knew it was because you helped me. And I said, it was a team effort. I said, we did this together. And so she started laughing. She gave me a hug, and then she left. And I went back to my office, and I sat down, and I said, oh my gosh, this must be like what parents feel like when their kid graduates from high school. How there's like, parents are so proud. That's how I felt, It was just like, oh my gosh. And like, I could feel myself like get overwhelmed. Like I got teary-eyed and things like that, because I was like, I can't believe that she's done so well, and her numbers are way up. And she's like, she was so happy. She said, that she had wanted to tell me since she found out. And I think it had been like a week or so that she had found out, and she was wanting to get with me and tell me about that. And I was just so overwhelmed and so happy. and I fixed her a bag. I have these little handle bags, and I bring these every time I have a new provider, and I put some candy in it and stuff like that. And I took it up to her, and I wrote on there, congratulations, and I took it to her office, and I said, I just wanted to say congratulations. She goes, oh my goodness. And it was just a few candies and things like that, and I gave her a hug, and I said, I'm just so happy. I'm so happy that you continued to work with me, and I'm just so happy that, this whole thing worked out. And she goes, me too, And so I left her there and at her office, and I had stopped by my supervisor's office, and I told her what she had said. And she goes, wow, she's Blue, that's really awesome. And I said, yeah, it is. And I just like, I got teary-eyed in her office. She's like, oh. And I could not help it, because I had worked with her really hard and trying to make sure that she got all the credit like she was supposed to, and all the fighting and all the arguing, and it finally paid off. And I still get teary-eyed now. And she, because it's a lot of work. It is so much work. And then when you hear, because sometimes you will not hear, okay, you will not hear the good news. But I had heard from her directly, and the fact that she was doing way better than she was, and getting all of this credit like she should have been getting, it was just really amazing to see her to go from that to this stellar documenter. And it was showing in her documentation too, because like I'm just able to fly through all her encounters. And so my boss was like, well, that is really awesome. She's like, I know that you do a lot, and I know that you're very dedicated to all your providers. She goes, that has to be really awesome. And I said, it is, and I was, like I said, I'm just so proud. And I had gone back to my office, and of course, everything is just, flowing and fine, and she's one of the first providers that I work on during the day, because, her stuff is just very streamlined, and it's just very easy to get through, because I have to make very few changes now, because she selects her diagnosis correctly, she's documenting, and I rarely have to send her a query back for like a procedure. And it's just so nice. It is really awesome. And so fast forward to this week, when we have the meeting and we get our new clinic assignments, and now the day that I got the news about that you're only going to code for podiatry and orthopedics, of course I'm excited, because this is podiatry and orthopedics. Like I said, this is really awesome. And then I said, okay, well, this means I don't have to do neurology, rheumatology, or pulmonology anymore. And so I said, okay, this is fine. So I found out who the new coders were going to be for these clinics, and I had sent rheumatology and pulmonology the email first because it's two ladies that are going to be between those two clinics. And so I sent them the email, and I included all the providers on there, and I said, effective Monday, we are doing new clinic reassignments. And I said, I will no longer be the coder. Your coders are, and I gave them the names. I said, it has been a pleasure working with all of you, and I appreciate everything I've learned from working in pulmonary and rheumatology. And if I said to assist in a seamless transition, I am always available for questions. I said I'm still here in my same office, and I'm still here in the hospital. So if you need me, you can reach out. And I told the coders as well, if you have any separately, I told them separately that if they had any questions, they can always ask me. And so I sent them that email, and then I sent neurology the email by themselves because there is one coder for neurology. And I said, there's only 2 neurologist providers in there. And so I said, okay. So I said, effective Monday, and I went through my spiel. And I said, I want to thank you for everything I've learned while I've been in neurology. And then I said, Provider G. I said, you are a total rock star. I said, I have learned so much from you, and I have seen firsthand the benefits of a good coder-provider relationship. And I said, I will never forget that. And I said, and I thank you sincerely. And I felt myself well up, I was really blue. But I felt sad in that moment. I felt really sad because, like I said, I had been through the gamut with her. And now I have to let her go. And I have to let somebody else be the coder for her now. And it's I just, I always hope that when providers go and they're with somebody else and they're with another coder, that they take what I've taught them and they run with it, and they're good, and they always document like they're supposed to. And all the little things that I catch them on, I hope that they don't keep making those same mistakes, even though I don't know other coders' abilities, and I don't even try to ask them or find out what they know or anything like that, because I can tell just by what they ask me. And so, writing that, I was like, okay, her documentation is really good. She's going to be okay on her own, But it just still made me feel really sad, and I was like, oh. I was like, well, it is because I've been with her, a little over a year, almost 2 years now. And, I won't have the gravy stuff to go to now. So, but it's okay. Like I said, and then I had another provider in neurology who is fairly new. And I had reached out to him before, and he resisted me in the beginning. And I actually had to march up there to his office and find him because he works in another section of the building. And I had told him I wanted to meet with him, and he kept blowing me off. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go over there and introduce myself. So I had gone over there and introduced myself, and he's like, oh, wow, it's nice to meet you. And I was like, we could have met weeks ago. So I said, oh, it's nice to meet you too. And he's like, well, I look forward to working with you and things like that. And I said, okay. And I told him in the email, I said, sir, I said, it's been a pleasure working with you, although albeit brief, I appreciate you working with me. I appreciate you. I'm happy to have met you and worked with you. So he wrote me back and he said, oh, thank you so much for all your assistance, and I really appreciate it, and thank you so much, and have a happy holidays. So and then Provider G had wrote, and she said, wow, she's like, I'm so sad to see you go. And she said, I've learned so much working with you. And she said, but I hope that I'll see you around, and I hope you have a happy holidays. And so that was how the transition ended, to now it's the new coder. So the new coder will be fine. She'll be fine. I told her, I was like, you will not have a problem with them. They're very low maintenance, and they're very very much on track. So you don't have to worry about anything going on with them. And so she was very relieved about that. And that was pretty much it. But I laugh at myself because I get very sentimental, and just thinking about all those things, and thinking of where would this provider be if she had not learned all these things as well. And it's nice. I mean, like I said, I'm very happy with how good she is now, and how much she evolved from the beginning. Because in the beginning I was just like arguing with her and just trying so hard with her. And finally, when she started working with me, and started changing, and getting better, and then it reflected in the numbers, and then just having this smooth sailing the whole way. And it's just really been awesome. And it's nice to be able to know that they're going to be okay with their new coder. So and anyway, so that's my story for today. But I just wanted to share that. I mean, it does happen. When it happened with orthopedics, I was so scared I wasn't going to be able to go back into orthopedics, because the way that it was presented, it was just so final that I was not going to be in there, because I needed to be in these other clinics where they needed somebody that was going to dig. And that was part of the reason that I was pulled for those clinics, was because I dig, and I find holes, and I find where they can improve and things like that. And that's what my boss knows too. And she knew that I guess that was the purpose of that. And now that those clinics are, and I say it too, those clinics are turnkey clinics. I mean, anybody can go in there. There's not a whole lot of improvements that need to be done, because they're in line. They already know. With pulmonary, like I said, they had done a few changes. So I mean, the coder has their work cut out for them, but I did the best that I could with them, and they're still better than when I got them. And that's the thing, so yeah, that was it, so kind of sad, very bittersweet, so what are you gonna do? But I am to have all of orthopedics now, and podiatry. Of course, I've had all of podiatry, but I am excited for that. And I'll never stop learning about it. I mean, I still get my New England Journal of Medicine, so I'm still going to read all the neurology and rheumatology and pulmonology articles. So anyway, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. And I will go ahead and say goodnight, because I am going to be working on the mini cheesecakes, because I have a party tomorrow. So I'm going to be making mini cheesecakes here in a little bit. And yeah, if you guys have any questions for Q&A Tuesday, remember I'm still stockpiling, and I will be back tomorrow for another exciting episode. Quiz Friday should be done by Friday. So that will be on Friday. But I will see y'all then. And so if you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. All right, I will see y'all on the next video. Bye!